Good morning, everyone. GM. Welcome to another episode of FOMO HOUR. Hey, it's Thursday, February 20th, 2025. What day has already been? It's going to get better from here, folks. We have a huge show today. Huge. Trump is back, saying he's going to make crypto great again in the U.S. We had a mega Kaido airdrop this morning, the Pain token presale last night, and some big news out of the SEC, which might have just stopped crime season in its tracks. Plus, folks, our biggest guest in quite some time, legendary artist Sam Spratt, is joining us halfway through the show to talk everything about the Masquerade. This is a big one. We've been looking forward to this show for days. Farouk is still out in Asia. Mando might pop in. He may not be able to join us, but we've got Ovi on with us. OSF, fresh off his pain trade, fresh off Paris. Ovi, how you doing, GM?
When you were like, we've got our biggest guest in a while, legendary artist, I was like waiting for my thing. And I was like, oh, hey, you're talking about Sam, not me.
We have two legendary artists on with us this morning.
Sam definitely much more legendary than me. It's good to be back. How you doing, man? I'm
good. It's been an eventful day already, but we are feeling good. How was Paris? I'm sad I wasn't able to go. It looked like it was a lot of fun.
It was good. I mean, of all the NFT events and stuff, Paris is one I enjoy quite a lot. There's a ton of people that turn up. I think there's like the actual conference itself, there's at least 20,000 people that roll by. And this time I felt like there were a lot of people who weren't really in the NFT space, not even necessarily in crypto. They had some AI events and that kind of stuff. We have like a big wrecked booth at each of these events, and we just hand out drinks for free. And I felt like last time 95% of people who turned up were people in the space who kind of knew what we were. Mm-hmm. This time it was a bit more 50-50, where people were like, what is this drink, how is it related to crypto or Web3 and stuff. So it was good. Like, there was a lot of a different crowd, I think, to usual. So yeah, I had a good time, enjoyed it, but good to be back, I think.
Nice. Expanding that top of funnel for
exactly.
Fans. Love to hear it, folks. So we're very excited to have legendary artist OSF on with us today as well. What are we talking about? So we're going to chat with him to start. We're going to talk markets, alts cooking a little bit, this breaking news about this SEC cybercrime unit. We're going to talk through the Kaido airdrop. We're going to talk through the Pain presale. I also want to get Ovi's thoughts on where crypto AI is here. And then second half of the show, Sam Spratt will be joining us to talk about the Masquerade, the idea, how it came up with it, how it's going to work, the one-on-one sale, and a whole lot more. So we are stoked for that one. Before we dive in, shout outs to our partners, Galaxis. Galaxis is a Web3 platform empowering creators and brands to build unstoppable communities with full ownership and independence, trusted by icons like Donald Trump, Steve Aoki, Mike Tyson, and the NBA, shaping together the future of engagement. And every day we see people's wallets get drained. Fairside is about to launch the fair alternative to insurance for crypto scams. Check out @Fairside Network on X. If you get drained, you won't be wrecked. All right. Sims, do we have music for Ovi, or should we just dive right in to our market chats?
We actually don't. I removed it a while back.
Oh, sad.
When you joined, we switched it out. We got your own. You can play your jingle if you want to go with it.
Let's do it. We need a jingle here today.
For daily NFT and crypto analysis. Tyler D on FOMO Hour, cause the kid can't miss.
Ready to bash some bears. All right, folks. Well, I'll take us to a quick overview, and then I just want to get into more high-level conversation with OSF here. But it's like Bitcoin 97,000 right now on the dot. It's up 1% on the day. ETH up in line. ETH at 27.30. Sol up a bit more, back at 173. So it seems like we've been kind of grinding up a bit here this week off of the Tuesday intraday lows. Some alts are cooking. Seriously cooking. So the Story Protocol, their IP tokens up 23%. BERA up 22%, back to $8. Celestia, Say, Pyth all up double digits on the day as well. So some nice movement in alts. We see SPX is up there, one of the top movers in alts. I think memes overall pretty much even on the day, kind of chopping in this zone right now. Not a whole lot of big movement on that board. News-wise, there wasn't a whole lot of big news that really came out yesterday from a macro standpoint. We had Trump come out and talk about how he passes executive orders to effectively end Biden's war on crypto. No new details really came out from that. I think the biggest piece of macro news broke this morning, right before the show. So we've got DB Tier 10K reporting the SEC has launched a cyber and emerging technologies unit. It will combat fraud in crypto, among other areas. And folks, if you dig into this and what they're actually going to focus on, fraud committed using emerging technologies such as AI and machine learning, use of social media or false websites to perpetrate fraud involving blockchain tech and or crypto assets. So this is a big one. I don't think that we necessarily expected this to come out here so soon. I think it's very welcome. I've seen some takes that perhaps this would be more limited to things like SIM swaps, but I don't know. When I read this fifth bullet, fraud involving blockchain tech and crypto assets, that feels like it's pretty open-ended to me. Ovi, what's your take on this? Is crime season going to end in its tracks here with this?
Yeah. It's about time we see something like this, because I think one of the faults of the previous administration is that there wasn't really any clear guidance. So not only did you not know what was right, you also didn't really know what was wrong, and people would just do random things and pay for it after the fact. So it's good to see like there's going to be a task force focusing on this stuff. And yeah, it's mental like how blatant the crime season has been to start the year, just because everyone has assumed if Trump did this and I can do that. But what other people have done is obviously way worse than what Trump did, which is just launch a token. So it's good to see. I think it will be good for the industry. There's just a ton of crime and bad actors that are siphoning money right now out of crypto, which is affecting all of us and affecting all our existing bags. And so it would be really nice to have some stricter enforcement on that stuff. I hope an announcement like this prevents people from doing any more of that kind of stuff, or at least makes people think twice. Like a lot of the crime has been committed by these guys like Hayden Davis, who's like an American citizen, and at least like it's going to have some layer of protection where the next people who want to do it will at least try and be anonymous or whatever. So hopefully goodbye to blatant crime season, I think.
Were you marked safe from the Libra scandal, Ovi?
Yeah, I mean, I put in a bit of money, but not very much. Like I put in 60 Sol and I sold it and for a 12 Sol loss. So it wasn't like a huge loss for me. And I think by this point I've gotten wise enough to it where it was like, I'm not going to just fucking put my full port this thing. I was even just angry with myself. Why did I even put in 60 Sol? Like I knew exactly what it was, and I lost some money on the Enron thing. Not that much, but so the amount I've been gambling with on the stuff has just reduced each iteration, and now I'm not even going to touch it. Like if Kanye, we spoke about this yesterday, Tyler, but if Kanye did a token, I wouldn't touch it because I'm not an insider. I'm not going to get the contract address early. I'm not going to be able to snipe it. I'm going to get secondhand information or too late, and by the time I get to buy it, maybe I catch a small move higher, but people will already be dumping on me, and I don't want to give my money to these people anymore. Yeah,
it feels like what's come out here is more just exposing that portions of the meme market were a rigged game.
Yeah.
I kind of hate the overgeneralization that the entire thing is rigged, because I don't think that's fair. Like you have launched a meme coin, Redcoin. I don't think anyone would try to make an argument that is a rigged token. And it was just kind of a natural progression. So I guess, how are you feeling about the broader meme market? I mean, some people think it's over forever. Some feel like maybe just a lull, and this is just cycles playing out. What's your view?
Yeah, I haven't been that constructive on meme coins and like the animal meme thing to start the year. I think I tweeted about that a few times, that I have more of a focus on AI this year rather than just memes, or if it's memes, meme coins within AI or that have some sort of like AI relation to it. So for me, I think a lot of these, I see some of the meme coins bouncing today, but I just think these are all going to be dead cat bounces, and we're not going to see 99% of meme coins we saw in 2024. They're not going to reach their all-time highs ever again. I think there are probably about 3, maybe 5 coins that could be inter-cycle and will. So stuff like Pepe, for example. But yeah, generally speaking, I think it's going to be very tough for the meme coin market to bounce because we haven't had that much retail inflow this year. And I think the idea of like, oh, these communities are really strong is massively diluted by the fact there are just tons of new coins all the time. And people seem it's like the same people who were previously the communities now just full on gamblers. Everyone is addicted to gambling. And when something new comes, everyone sells the old bags to like chase the new one. And so that just seems to be, I don't think it's a meta that's happening. I think that's a natural maturing of the market. And so, yeah, I just, I barely own any memes apart from Rect, and Rect obviously has a big AI focus to it now, and everything else that we're doing with the drinks, etc. So I wouldn't even class Rect as just like a pure meme coin. I think the pure meme coins I don't own any of right now because I think it's very tough to buy and hold that stuff.
It's tricky. Folks have moved on from like the memes as communities to just pure rocket game.
Yeah.
I am hopeful that trend will reverse at some point, but I'm also not naive. I don't think it's happening anytime soon. Perhaps like zooming back out to just Bitcoin and broader crypto markets. Like how are you feeling? Like we've had a pretty big run of positive news, macro positive news for Bitcoin specifically. I think also just for the broader crypto space. Yet here we are kind of just still ranging 97K. Like what's your view, like Q1 plus like maybe on the year? Like, do you think we're going to keep chopping here for a while? Do you have perspective?
Yeah, I think it's all been sell the news, really, hasn't it? And I think at the end of last year, my fear was that inauguration would be a sell the news because I never had the view that they would immediately announce a Bitcoin reserve and that they would immediately start buying. Like I was like, these things, Trump's not even president yet. And for the US to like classify a whole new asset as like a strategic reserve surely takes a lot more work and effort and research than just Trump saying, hey, I want to do this and it being, done on day one. So I always felt like that would be a sell the news. But then we had all this like all these really positive headlines around other stuff into it, like the crypto task force and the idea of potentially other digital assets being part of the stockpile, and just Trump really talking everything up. And originally when Trump launched his meme coin as well, this is before all the other tokens came, I was like, wow, that's pretty bullish. It's just like the president launching a coin in the US. They're going to really, really push this stuff. But I think my original thought of like it being sell the news was the right one because obviously we had all these other coins and it turns out their intentions were bad. And yeah, I think we're in for a chop. I think it will take at least 6 months, probably from now still, to approve a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And then the act of actually buying Bitcoin from that, possibly even longer. Like these things don't get done overnight. But what I would say is that they are insanely, insanely positive, and they've gone from being priced in to slowly being priced out over time. And a lot of alts are down 90% plus. Meme coins obviously down quite a lot. AI is down a ton. So I've been like mostly in Bitcoin for a while, since kind of like the beginning of the year after that first AI nuke. But things are at interesting levels for me now where I'm looking to like rotate into stuff like Sol, stuff like AI. I think if you look at Bitcoin dominance, the 3 times it has fallen sharply in the last 12 months have been when Trump won the elections, when Trump started speaking about crypto and the Bitcoin reserve around like it was May, June time, and when the Bitcoin ETF got approved. So they were all like Bitcoin positive events that actually caused Bitcoin dominance to fall and alts to rally. And that's because I think the market goes risk on and it tries to gamble the other stuff to outperform Bitcoin. So my expectation is a few months of chop. we may even get like a bigger pullback if we get some negative headlines on Bitcoin Reserve, which is definitely possible. But ultimately, I do think it will get approved, and that's my North Star catalyst really for risk rallying into that, I think. But I think we have to be patient. There's no need to get crazy loading the boat at these levels. And my play outside of Bitcoin really has been AI and ARC and AI16Z. The two I've been buying. I've just been very patient about only adding them when they hit new lows, really. Sometimes I feel like I wish I was more aggressive there at times, but that's kind of like my thought right now.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your thoughts as always. And I mean, it's hard to be super aggressive with this AI market cap right now at 6 billion. I guess it depends on your perspective. It feels like every time we've bought the dip and seen the rebound, the next dip is dippier and it goes lower.
Yeah.
So I guess real quick, I would love your AI thoughts. Like we talked about this before. You laid out potential $100 billion total market cap for all of these. Do you think that the next meta is going to be different? You talked about ARC and AI16Z. Those are the horses you're betting on.
Yeah, I really like, so within the AI space, I think the big play here is thinking of maybe some of these things as like potential L1s. And so I think AI16Z and ARC fall in that bucket. And the reason why I say that is because if you can view something as a potential like L1 for AI agents, your ceiling is a lot higher for an L1 coin than it is for an altcoin than it is for a meme coin. So those are the two that I like. I think it's really hard to ignore the mind share that AI16Z has and all the tech that supports it. I know people have an issue with the shore and all that kind of stuff, but for me, that's kind of created like a buying opportunity for something that I felt like I missed earlier. And ARC, it's just like a similar thesis really there on that one. So, these things are nascent and they're not without fault and they're not without trials and tribulations. And we've kind of seen that a couple of times on ARC. But for me, I do think they will. I think this whole sector will come out on top this year because it's really hard just to ignore AI in not only in markets or in crypto, but just in your everyday life. Really, it's hard. AI is always mentioned, and this for me is the first. I'm not a detailed investor or detailed trader like someone like Mando is, or maybe even yourself. Like I don't look that much into the details. I'm like, okay, what can I just like tangibly see and feel that makes me want to buy something? Because that's how I think a large proportion of the retail investor base thinks. And for me, AI agents is like the first actual product within AI where you can be like, oh, cool, I see AI XBT all over the timeline, or hey, I see like Rect Guy AI producing these art pieces. Like I see these things and I can explain to someone in simple English what this actually does. As soon as you have, we didn't have that last year. We have that this year. Or we didn't have that, the first half of last year. So now that we have that, I think there's like a real, whether it's a real product market fit that has longevity, I don't really know. Like, who knows if this is just going to be vaporware stuff in the future or real stuff. But for now, it's new, it's fresh. I can explain to my normie friends what it is, what it does, and why you should buy the token, and explain that the market cap is so low versus other sectors in crypto. I think it's a really good investment case. Plus, like I know we like to hate on and ignore the institutions, but there is a lot of institutional capital flowing into this stuff. Like I spoke to a lot of guys who are putting in big tickets, and I mean, even the other day it was like someone bought like what was it, like 7 mil of AI16Z and 8 mil of ARC. Like those are institutional tickets that are going into this stuff, and these guys who've missed the whole meme coin cycle, who can't really raise capital from their LPs, investors to invest in meme coins, they can in this. And there are similar people who are commentating on this space, who were commentating on meme coins last year. So for me, it has all the DNA to be a main cycle narrative. We've gotten caught in the meme sell-off and the altcoin sell-off and whatnot, but I don't think this is the end of the story for AI agents. And I do think I think there's going to be one point this year where people will look at these levels and think, fuck, I really should have bought that dip in size. I really think we'll see that.
I hope you're right. I think you make a good point about like more institutional capital being able to allocate to this sector versus memes. I think that's spot on. You talked about ARC and AI16Z. That's primarily where I've played. I have to give a quick shout out to Virtuals and then we'll move on. We got to talk Kaido. as well as paying quickly. They introduced their agent commerce protocol yesterday. And if someone is interested in this space, I definitely encourage you to read the white paper, or at least a summary. I created a summary of it yesterday for folks. But basically, they have built a decentralized open source protocol for agent-to-agent commerce on chain, as well as with a human interaction component. So if you are bullish on the scenario where agents will be acting autonomously and transacting on chain, and there will be a home for that, Virtuals is throwing their hat in the ring. And I don't know if they're going to be the winner, but they are trying to go after it. And when they talk about some of the examples and like spinning up an AI digital marketing business where you have like an AI artist, you have an AI writer doing the copy, and then perhaps they employ a human, a KOL, to do their marketing for them. And like that is a model where humans could actually be paid by AI agents in the somewhat near future, which is wild to think about, but I feel like that's very non-zero. I actually think it's non-zero to happen in 2025. And how that could happen actually is via a protocol like Kaido. So Kaido has the nuts and bolts in place, showing who has the mind share, and they've got I believe they're starting to set it up in the back end to create that type of a payment mechanism. So folks, the news out of Kaido, they did launch their token here this morning. I don't think we've gotten a whole lot of more news about what it will be. Perhaps they're kind of saving that, for a post airdrop info. Boom. We did get the tokenomics. 25% core contributors, 32% for the ecosystem, 2% to Binance, 10% was for the community and eco claim, and then 7.5% for longer incentives. So the airdrop today was a bit smaller than some folks were expecting. It does come along with another round of potential airdrops coming in the future. The token itself, it performed strongly out of the gate. So it opened around $1.20.
Oh wow, it's really moved since we last spoke about it. Wow.
It has. It dipped to $1.06 and then just shot straight to $1.50. And it looked like all the early sellers perhaps had made a mistake, and then it has since been selling off. So it's right around 90 cents or a $900 million FDV here. So still in the early hours of this token. It's going to be volatile. Curious, OSF, any reactions to you from the token or just broader thoughts on Kaido?
Yeah, I like Kaido. There's a lot of FUD on the timeline about it. Like, this is worse than Friendtech and all that kind of stuff. Like, I think of all the social fi stuff we've seen, it has the best like scoring mechanism, in my opinion, for rewarding people who tweet useful things. Like when I look through the Kaido list and I see the rankings, I think, oh wow, here's some people who I've actually personally always rated, but who don't typically score on the other stuff because they maybe have fewer followers or worse engagement. So I think in my opinion, it's done a pretty good job of identifying like people who have useful content, and it does that through this idea of like smart followers and stuff like that, which I think is quite interesting. So I think it's good tech, in my opinion. I don't think it's just another friend tech. I think it's very useful tech. Should it be worth 1 billion, 1.5 billion FTV, more than that? I don't really know. Like, I don't really have a full understanding of how the revenue model works, and nothing to do with like Kaido or their tech, but it gets bucketed within like, oh, this is what everyone is focused on right now. Airdrop happens. Okay, boom, let's move to the next thing. Like, that's just how the market is right now. So you really have to have something extremely special or something that people will want to really use every single day, like Hyperliquid, to maintain that kind of mind share. So I don't know if it's going to be able to do that. I really hope it does, because it's really, for me, it's like a breath of fresh air to see a product that people have, honest and hardworking people have been working on, come to the market and do an airdrop, and everyone makes a bit of money from it. Yes, it's not quite the moon math everyone was making it out to be, but from my perspective, I got whatever, like a 5-figure airdrop from just doing nothing other than tweeting like how I normally tweet. Like, I'm definitely very grateful for that. So I think we should be celebrating it for sure. At the end of the day, they're giving a bunch of people free money. But will it last here, and will this these levels last, that I'm not sure about. I hope it does, but that will remain to be seen, I think.
Yeah, you make a lot of good points, and absolutely rooting the Kaido team on. I think they've done everything really well. They moved fast through a launch in what's been kind of a tricky market, so that they weren't just trying to time market conditions. They opened at over $1 billion. Like, that's an incredibly difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
At the same time, from an investment standpoint, so I sold a good chunk of my airdrop. I'm happy to be transparent about that. It was harder for me to justify a $1.2 billion FTV valuation based on like what we've seen from them to date. And maybe they're going to come out and share revenue numbers that back that up. I'm optimistic on their future business model. I think they still have a long road to go to prove out that they're $1 billion protocol. So that's where I'm at, but I'm actively rooting them on, and I'll continue to be participating in the ecosystem. So I'm very excited to see what more they're going to release today with respect to staking and perhaps their near-term vision for how they're going to continue to monetize the ecosystem. And how that information comes out, again, may change my opinion of the protocol. But I think they have to be happy today. This was a huge launch in what is still kind of a challenging market. The other launch, and we're going to go to Sam here in just a couple minutes. We got to quickly talk about the Pain presale. I know you were plugged in to this one. Pain team, they threw a couple curveballs our way, so they refunded 80% of the presale because they knew it was probably going to be tough to perform. And then it came out of the gate yesterday. Let's see, it opened absurdly high because of snipers, but then it got to about $60 million market cap, which was 120 million FTV, sold off a bit, and then it rallied all the way to 250 million FTV, and we're like $25 a token. It's back to 15 now. The curveball they had is they released some tokenomics. They effectively burned 50% of the tokens by sending them to Herald, the person behind the meme, and locking it till 2045. What were your thoughts around this presale? You participated, and would you do it again? Do you think Memeland would be able to pull this off again, or do they need to wait a little while?
Yeah, I think they will. I don't think you can do it back to back. Obviously, I think they'll need to wait a while. But again, I think this is a good example of people acting the right way after all this extraction we've seen. Like, they could have just taken $40 million, right, and put in a portion of that into liquidity and all that kind of stuff, and just really made bank on it. But they didn't. They refunded 80% of it back to pre-salers, and then they burnt half the token supply. They haven't been too greedy in like taking coins for themselves or anything like that. So honestly, I think they've done everything the right way. I think if this was launched just a couple of weeks ago before the Libra stuff, and there was more liquidity in the trenches, I think this could have done really well. It could have been, it has done really well for pre-sales. Pre-sales are up like whatever it is, 5-6x right now. But it could have been even bigger. I think it really could have done really well, because right when they did the refund, it caught everyone off guard and was like, oh fuck, this isn't a scam, this is legit. So timing is timing, and it's not always in everyone's controls. And I know these guys have been working hard to try and get all the exchange listings and that kind of stuff. So I think if they did another one, people would go in for it hard. I think if they did another pre-sale for, I don't know, I think for another one of the IPs that they have a partnership with, let's say in a month or two's time, I think they would probably raise more than this original 40 million is my guess. But they would have to make it, what they should probably need to do is like make it a capped pre-sale and make it such that if you're a Pain holder, or maybe, other Memeland assets, you get first look in, or something like that, I think would be the way to do it.
It would be hard for them to have another big success, but this was just laid out. I think it was a big win for anyone who sent to the pre-sale.
Yeah.
Anywhere from a plus 50% to a 2x or more if you held through the overnight peak in a rough meme market. So I'm calling it a win. More is to come from Memeland. So I don't know if folks saw this. It was a little buried at Consensus in Hong Kong. Ray Chan, CEO of Memeland, is giving a talk, and he's going to reveal their 2025 roadmap, the launch of MemePay, their new crypto credit card, as well as Meme Strategy, their version of MicroStrategy. So I think that is arguably like the biggest open item here. is what that actually means. I don't think they're just going to be stockpiling meme coins. I think there's likely going to be more to it. Maybe it's some kind of a meme launching capacity. I think they have a chance to monetize that, and they're good at it. I think this was a very well done launch. I think smart people were plugged in. Stats, Sam, friend of the show, he did a nice write up on everything they tried to do to event snipers, and I think a lot of snipers actually got wrecked on this.
Yeah, it's perfect to see that. I think. I think look, these guys, obviously their original business is 9gag, which is huge, and like these guys understand memes. I think they understand community. Like I wouldn't ever fade Ray or Shah. These guys. I think I made a comment on Memeland artwork like once 2 years ago, and they sort of like raged at meme token and got the Binance listing and everything, and they really crushed it. So I think I definitely wouldn't fade these guys, and I know people have a sort of like a perception sometimes, but I think these are good actors, and I think they've serially been successful at things that they've done. So this whole like meme strategy and Memeland thing is interesting. And yeah, like on the one hand, you may say memes should be memes. They shouldn't have utility. They shouldn't have these other things. Like it should just be the meme. And if it's funny, people will buy it. And I think that's true to an extent, or it's definitely very true in a market like last year when meme coins are going crazy. But as the overall market evolves and people find new things even more funny, or other things come to play, if you're not a Pepe or a Doge or a Shib, it's very hard to maintain that attention. So having these other things that these guys are talking about is something that I think could keep a meme coin alive if it needs to be. And for me, it's interesting. I think it's a slightly different path to the typical meme coin thing, but it's important to understand that if you want your meme coin to last for multiple years and not just multiple days, which is the hard thing right now, then you need to have another element to it that's not just, hey, this meme is pretty funny.
Yeah, and I've got confidence in this team. I trust Stats, Sam. I don't think he would be working with them if he didn't believe in the mission and the vision. So I think they've got some more tricks up their sleeve. Or tricks is probably the wrong word. I think they've got some big plans here. So I'm very curious to see what they'll continue to roll out. But a nice win on Pain here from the Memeland team, folks. All right, we've done our market roundup. It is time to get into our discussion here with Sam Spratt. Wow, this is a big one, folks. If you're not familiar, I'm sure almost all of you are. Sam Spratt, legendary digital artist, fresh off his $3 million sale for his 1/1X Masquerade. And the game is about to go live. He's incredibly busy. We're thankful he took out some of his time to speak with us. Sam, GM, how are you doing?
Yeah, man. It's good to see you both.
It's good to see you too. I appreciate your time. Wow, I imagine your head is spinning. You're locked in the office right now. We could go so many directions with this. I think maybe first off, I'm just curious, when did you come up with the idea for the Masquerade? Has this been something that, like, this ever stretching kind of games and evolving games, has that been in the works for quite some time? Like, talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. So all of Lucy, the series I've been making over the last 3 years and change, it's episodic. So it's always kind of made as I'm starting this new bit of my life. I'm going to make one painting at a time, and each one is going to be what I'm actively learning, maybe trying to capture a little bit of what I have learned and try to point at what I want to learn next. And so, that began with these narrative paintings. And then it slowly started slipping into utilizing the blockchain, but in kind of like a not code-based way, more in a relationship-based way. So like the Skulls of Lucy was the first example of this, where those first 3 paintings I did in the auctions, I ended up painting a skull for each one of the people that entered into my first steps into the space. So these things were free gifts. In the act of doing that, suddenly I collided with this host of 50 people who all have totally different lives than me. I've been an artist for 10 years doing album covers, movie posters, things like that. And to collide with traders, poker players, protocol engineers, other artists, just like a totally different ball game. It it's inspiring. It kind of just shows you're in a very, very tiny bubble, and a lot of different industries are suddenly butted up against each other. And with that, I think it just kind of broke a little bit of my path that started as this very solitary, artistic, kind of melodramatic endeavor, and then a node connected to it with my wife, Rachel, and then a node connected to it with a few friends, and then a council of people. And then the monument game, that piece back there, was a way to kind of create a large painting, but have a lot of people gather around and contribute their thoughts to it. And so while I was making that, towards the tail end of it, the idea for Masquerade was percolating. Little fragments of it was there, but really it was actually seeing what happened through my collision with all the people that rode on top of it, that traded after, and seeing all of the human behavior around this art, this like very maybe over earnest story that I had been making, suddenly having a bunch of people both give me their own earnesty of love letters and confessions and letters to their dead brother, and like beautiful things that are just etched in code on my painting forever. But also like the opposite end of the spectrum of our space, the more degenerate side of it as well. And then as it started entering the market and people started trading it, you see this thing that was a link between us. It's tenuous. There are some people that hold it for a very long time. It remains precious to them. And there's some that it starts moving. And then as an artist, reckoning with, okay, well, suddenly I've connected this network. What do they all want from me? And it's a bit of a jungle out there. It's a little mad. And so Masquerade was really born from seeing both the like profound camaraderie and friendship of colliding with like people like Ovi and some of the members of the council, and like the genuine brotherhood and bonds and formations that can occur in such let's be real here, like a very absurd small portion of the world that we're all kind of colliding in. And then on the other end of the spectrum, the inverse of camaraderie, right? The people that maybe wear that to you, but do not act that way behind the scenes. And as you wrestle with all this, I think where Masquerade ultimately started coming into fruition was the recognition that there's no good, there's no bad. You need the whole spectrum. You need the people that are like your tightest brothers, your most trusted people right next to you. You need your even tighter version of that in the form of family. And then you need the kind of people gradating all the way in between. And that's what creates like a living and breathing ecosystem. Like we're undulating, and you need the predators and the prey. You need the people that provide cover for others, the good guides and the teachers, and the people that are irony, poison, shit posters. Like there's none of this works without the whole spectrum.
It is a growing organism. That's such an interesting way to put it. So you started with your one-of-ones. You have a handful of collectors. Then you do skulls, 49, I believe. So you're growing the circle. I think my first glimpse was NFT NYC 2022. And that's where I really saw like the skull holder and like this cult forming around you. Like, oh, this is a real thing. This is a group of people who really believe in your work. And then you've expanded here 2 years ago with the Monument game, 256 and now 613 for the Masquerade. And there's a lot of directions we can take this. I want to give you a chance to walk folks through the Masquerade here. How is it going to work? And I also want to get into like why you like these interactive games.
Sure.
Maybe talk to us a little bit more about the Masquerade.
So to kind of just strip out a lot of there's a lot to it, but to just kind of boil into like what the actual participation and interaction here is it's built on some of the foundation with Monument Game. So Monument Game was one large labyrinthian image, very complex, hundreds of stories within it that I made. And then we built an interface for you to leave a coordinate and a written observation on top of. Think of it like a a slightly long tweet that is embedded atop of it, this communal varnish of written contributions atop my work. So it builds on that foundation, but across 3 phases. So the first phase is everyone with a mask. So right now the public drawing ends later today. So we'll find like the total who all is on this guest list, who all has a bear mask. So all of these masks begin identical to one another. And each one of them will begin the first phase by leaving an observation. So just a written contribution of themselves atop the work, the Masquerade. After a few days, we're going to switch to the next phase. And the next phase was really inspired by what happened after the Monument game, which was, well, suddenly I'm not just like alone in the network, I'm connected with all of you. So, well, what happens if now you've observed and then everyone kind of gets to be a reply guy to one another, and you are now discussing with one another. You're engaging in discourse, in dialogue. And so you'll reply to a few of the people that are near you. And then move to the next phase is taking that collision, whatever you learned from, whether it was a extremely friendly, helpful person that kind of took some strand of your thought and tried to pull it in a new direction, open a window for you, or if it's someone that shat all over everything that you had to say, however you choose to take that is like, that is the collision, that is other people destroying, trying to find form of your idea, and you come back in to try to balance it with a revision, an edit. And really it's these 3 steps of life. The observation is a creation. It's like that first vulnerable act of putting yourself out there. Destruction is discussion. It's where us engaging in a dialogue with one another, if we trust each other, if we care about trying to find each other's best form, or even if we don't, just the act of being in dialogue starts chipping away at making that creation better, right? It's like any business you guys have run, like the more eyeballs you have, sometimes it's too many cooks in the kitchen, but sometimes it shows you things that you didn't see because you were a little too close to it. And then at the end, try to balance. And I can get into what it's all inspired by, which is this ancient form of scripture and commentary, but that's the core mechanic of what everyone will be doing. And then this collection that all begins bare, so all of the masks are the same. Every mask that I've made, they're all one of the 613 collection, is inspired by all these different kinds of people that we're talking about. You know, the full ends of the spectrum of your kindest and your cruelest, the funniest, the most profound. And so the masks, rather than, I would say, how people might typically associate a collection where you would mint and a random number generator would determine what you get, or you are hand selecting the piece that you want. This is actually a link between me and you. And so the words you give me, I will be going through this collection of, you know, it's 613, but I've made more than 613, and seeing what goes with you. And because of some of the tools I built, if there's people that have behavior, which is almost an inevitability that totally surprises me and is way outside of, like, you know, the attempts to show a variety of human beings, but, you know, you'll never really capture the density and complexity of all of our little variables. I'll be making them in real time over the course of this to hit those anomalies.
I was curious how you were going to actually make the masks. It
Yeah, me too.
like so much work. So you've built kind of a foundation, and then you've got some levers and things that you can, you know, do as you're going through and reading that. I'm sure people would love to hear a little bit more about how that's going to work.
Yeah, so much like this system of participation, creation, destruction, balance, that's kind of what I've been doing for the last year and a half. So I've been a painter my whole life, illustrator. I've been drawing professionally for, you know, almost 15 years or so, starting out with, you know, little gigs for editorial sites, then album covers and so on. But, you know, I've loved drawing and painting forever, but I became very curious about expanding my skill set a little bit, the tool set. And when a few things happened, but one, when I was out in Venice for the Monument Game exhibition, you know, you're there during the Biennale, so you're colliding with all these traditional artists, and the traditional artists that go and do their exhibitions there. You learn that, you know, most of the top tier artists in the traditional world that are given these opportunities, you know, they're not a lone guy up on a mountain. You know, they have whole team studios of assistants of a bunch of like Pratt interns that are doing their, you know, their it's like a factory, a pipeline working in hand with them. And for me, there's just something that like kind of terrifies me about like loving so much making things this way, drawing my whole life, being an artist, of like, oh, to grow, I have to one day just become a manager. Like that like horrifies me a little bit. And I understand there's components of that, of directing, conducting, that will absolutely come into the picture here. But I was curious, like, can I stay close to it? Like, do I not have to abstract myself, filter and filter and filter away from it? So I started learning node-based programming, and I started learning sculpting, and I started slowly stitching together over a very long time, kind of a set of hybrid tools that is, it is drawing, it is painting, it's sculpture, it's trained on my poetry, it's trained at different epochs along the process, on my sketches, my underpaintings, my paintings, my characters, and finally my individual brushes and brushwork. And what ended up happening is kind of building a hybrid system where I can make one brush stroke, and that brush stroke kind of has every brush stroke I've made in the past. It's like this oddly weird avatar-like situation where you're sort of like recalling your past because you've spent a long time extracting the file structure of how everything you've made would work. And so what I've done is kind of made like a very, very grimy form of a man-machine hybrid tool where there's no point where anything is really generating without me in it. It's just this constant pass back and forth, this constant conversation. I like to describe it as like grinding a rock against a mainframe because it is inelegant. But if you watch some of the videos that I posted, you can see a little bit of like the lattice work of the nodes and how it kind of slips in and out of drawing and painting and 3D and generative work, all kind of eventually getting to the other side where I guess my main goal is I don't really think art that is defined by its tool is very interesting. Like it's kind of like, I don't know, I'm a man. Okay, great. Like not that interesting of like a premise to start getting to know someone. So really it's more, I wanted to break down my own patterns and how I've done things my whole life, and the act of learning how to do that and seeing what can't be outsourced to a machine, but also what can, is like an interesting thing to learn about yourself, like your strengths and weaknesses. There's a little bit of like ego dissolution, but then also like you get to see that most of what's precious and left in there is kind of your flaws in a weird way. And preserving that has been like the process.
I've got one quick question, Sam.
Yeah.
Everything, you know, everything that you've just explained, and also the Monument game, it all has this feeling of like really careful, intricate planning and a lot of thought that's gone into it and a lot of careful construction. And I'm sure all of that happens when you come around to like, okay, when you and Rachel sit down and come around to like, okay, this is what we're going to do. But how much of like the ideas that you have and kind of the outcome of what you decide to do is premeditated versus how much of it is just like, oh, I kind of felt this way today and this seems like a good idea, let's try that. Like, for example, when you did the Monument game, did you already have the plans and the ideas kind of in place already for the Masquerade? And then when you were doing the Lucy one of ones, did you have the idea for the Monument game, or is it just kind of things that have developed over time? Because, you know, the way that you speak about it and the way that we see these come to fruition, it's like, wow, Sam must have been planning this stuff since he was born. But I'd love to get like an insight into like, you know, how these thoughts spring up and you know, spawn in your mind, if that makes sense.
Sure. So I guess I would say I have a plan in the sense that I have a direction. Like I can usually, I try to think in a time scale that is far enough out there that I directionally have batted up against my own ideas enough to know that that is fundamentally where I want to point towards. But the thing about over planning or not letting Like when I hide away for a year and a half and make something, when I finally put it out there and share it, especially when it is this participatory mechanism, there's just so many new variables that I'm trying to construct rules and guides and the parameters of what I care about, the outcomes, the behavior that I want to provoke or incentivize. But I also am building just enough chaos in it that I don't really know exactly how it's all going to unfurl. And that's already happened even in the like preliminary mechanics of how people have invited people or whatnot like that. So even if I have the plan of a direction, or to take like a Trumpism, like a concept of a plan, is there's always a intentional wiggle room left there where I want to be able to learn from whatever happens the moment I share it out there, because there's just a very different thing that occurs that if I only had my initial architecture of the idea, then I've almost like trapped myself in a prior state of growth. And I don't really like doing that whenever possible. It's already hard enough to kind of avoid that. But like, for example, within Monument Game, there's a book buried on the ground, hidden next to the log, that says The Masks of Lucy, a collection, right? So like, I knew I wanted to make this, and I knew I wanted to explore new tools to learn how to create a collection of the size, of the fidelity, and creativity that I wanted to. But at that point, I had no idea whether or not I would necessarily be able to, or what form it would take. I just directly knew that this is a mission that will stretch me. I don't totally know if I can do it. That excites me. I think most of what I find compelling about, well, maybe any bit of art is like, I'm currently capable of this. I believe I have some weird delusion in my head that maybe I'm capable of that. The tension to get there, like there's the joy, right? There's the act of doing the whole damn thing. It's like same thing with raising a kid, building a relationship, all of that. It's just this like projection out into the future. And so that's the plan, if you will. So yes, there are ingredients of this that are highly architected that have multiple years in mind, but usually those are like little details compared to the big thing is I want to let my collision with everyone help. I don't know. I just want to learn from them.
Yeah. Well, I love hearing that the high level vision, how this is all tied together, the timeline. I know some of our listeners are playing and they want more specific details.
Sure.
If you can get into it. So I got a couple questions. One, just perhaps about kind of what you are looking for from participants. And like, this is a competition. How does one win? I guess the other, like the third part of this, I know I'm throwing a lot, is how do you manage anonymity? Like, do people tip themselves off via comments, and how do you kind of work around that?
So people can tip themselves off with comments. That's 100% the case. But there are a number of people that will be playing the Masquerade that I know will be there, but I don't know which mask they are, and they have not publicly revealed themselves. And so like our guest list is a very eclectic group of kind of all ends of the spectrum in a common space. As far as what I'm looking for, I guess I'll start there, is I think there's this maybe like we got a little bit of this in the Monument Game, not a lot, but a little bit, where people thought that what I was after was, things that speak in my language or use the kind of words that I use or have immersed themselves in the world of Lucy and all that. And, like that, if that's what drives you and motivates you, by all means. But for me, the point of kind of me exerting the art and building the system around it is to try to capture some little snapshot of what all this strange cultural moment we're in is. And that is, like we talk about the market in abstraction, like it's some kind of entity, but it's people, right? It's an undulating organism of people. And so who are each of the people that help move and motivate it? So like what I'm looking for, as I don't care if it is about Lucy, about my art, about using my words. I don't care if it's well written or anything like that. Like that is not what I'm looking for at all. I am genuinely just curious, like what have you been up to? Like, what is your life? What if you could encapsulate one little snapshot into it, one story, one leave behind, one note to someone else, one anything that is of your essence, if you want to call it, like there doesn't need to be anything deep or profound about that. It can just be you. Is that will help me know where to put it all. And I think it's the things where we get a little stuck of knowing, well, what do I want to leave behind? That's when, well, you start wearing a different kind of nature, and there's something to observe in that as well. But no, the point of Masquerade is it's not to there. Yes, look, there are keys and codes and riddles. There are things to find. There's all that, but that's just because there's a whole host of people that work like that. Yes, there are 3 masks that can be won. Not everyone is motivated by winning. Like some people just want to be, and that whatever form that takes, you're kind of encouraged. Like the reason why one of the lessons learned from Monument Game of, well, all the players were identical, but there's these 3 skulls, is some of my reflection on that is, man, there's so much that I read that people contributed that how could I really even sort it? You know, like my attempt to try to create these parameters and incentive structures, like there's so much that I loved that meant a lot to me, that how can I create more of the spectrum of sorting of all of these masks and try to make it really felt and understand that I am going through, I am reading all of these. Every single line written means the world to me, that you would even bother to take the time, let alone collect a piece of my art. And so all I'm looking for is you, basically. And as far as the winners, that is the task that I've given to the council. And so, you know, OB is part of that. And basically what that will be is closer to the Monument Game. They'll be they're structured a little different here, but I can't get into that too much yet. But the intent is to take everyone in, and based on these 3 separate phases, which kind of have very different behaviors if you think about them, of that initial observation is something we kind of do alone. It's like a personal thing between me and whoever is coming in some sense. But then the discourse and discussion, now I'm out of it, and it's everyone there colliding with one another. What do you want to leave behind on a topic, one another? And then that final step of revision is, you know, like, do you take feedback well, or do you reject it outright? And so those 3 things are kind of these separate rubrics, if you will, of what everyone is looking at. And there are 3 masks that represent creation, destruction, and balance. So observation, discussion, and revision. And it's 1 extra mask that is given to each of the 3, but everyone has their masks revealed and chosen at the same time.
Got it. Well, this is super insightful, especially for me. Like a disclosure, I'll be playing for the first time, and I'm incredibly excited. And now I have a better idea about how this is going to work. I am curious for you on a personal level, how stressful is this? Like, what parts of the next couple of weeks are like the most stressful, or are you just love it and just deep and like enjoying every second?
I do love all of it. Like I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it. But yeah, I mean, look, it's been a long rollout already. We try to pace it in a way where there's kind of moments of extreme activity and exertion, and then a little bit of breathing room, so it's not just all the time. But today we get to the end of the public drawing phase, which is like we're kind of out of the zone of anything to do with a sale or anything to do with who is or isn't in the thing. And tomorrow we get to go into, you know, the core experience that we were creating. And so for me, like all of the preamble, a lot of that centers around slowly trickling out information so that it's not overwhelming, and to almost create a filter of people who are curious and interested and want to take a leap and are comfortable with the oddities and opacities around this. That like some of the years spent building all this is they don't need to necessarily follow every single step that I've done, but through like consensus among friends or anything like that, that final group of people that comes into this are people that are like, they're down, like they recognize the absurdity of making art to begin with, doing it on chain, doing it all together like this, and they're willing to dive all the way in, and not kind of sideline or side eye the whole thing. And so the slow dole out has kind of created a beautiful crew of people. Like I think the guest list will make itself apparent to people at the close, after it's done, but it like genuinely warms my heart to see like people that I have seen tiniest glimmers of, or just like knew like the fragment of a name for 3 years. Like we've said hello or shook hands at like one random event 2 years ago, and now suddenly they're in this. And that you have like the high and the low of all of this. You have someone that randomly bought Ethereum like, I don't know, 6 years ago, and has 5 followers and a Milady PFP. And then you also have like billionaire art collectors from the traditional art world. Like that they're all in a common play space is very interesting to me. I enjoy that kind of like folding in of spaces.
It's incredible. And Sam, I know we're over time. I want to be conscious of your time, as you're a busy man. I guess maybe one last question here is, what would you tell someone who's interested? They've seen, they're starting to see the Masquerade. They don't have a mask, but they want to learn more about the ecosystem and figure out how to join. Like, what should they do over the coming weeks?
Sure. So until 6 p.m. today, there's a public drawing for the remaining 68 masks. So it's a collection of 613. All the others are accounted for based on decisions that players have made. This is that final pool. I don't know the number of entries we're at. I think it's like 400, 500, something like that so far. And you can try to get in through that method. And if you're able to, you'll find out at 6 p.m. whether or not you're going to in or out. But I guess what I'd also say is like seeing like the number of entries versus what's available. For me, the intent of keeping the collection size what it is and not making something that is like 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 is like very explicit. That's a lot of people. It's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot. It's sure, it's way more money that could be made or anything like that. I don't really care about that so much. Like I would rather leave that on the table for others to get to try to figure out how to do my next thing later. Like that's, this is more than enough. We have a blessed life. But the people that are in, tomorrow you'll begin that process of observation, discussion, and revision. And then at the close, all of the secondary will open. And now all of the masks that everyone has received, if anyone doesn't, let's be real, like there are some people that have gotten it. They may not, maybe they don't like the mask I gave them, right? There's always that. Maybe they want a different mask. There's a million things that could motivate that behavior. Is they'll start swapping at the end of all this. We've also built a whole secondary market with a new royalty structure that I created as well, which we probably don't have time to get into. But nonetheless, a big part of the way I wanted to think about the masks is when a player left an observation on the Monument game, some of those ones that maybe like hit a liquidity crisis over the year and had to sell it, they are actually kind of bummed about it. Like there was a personal nature to it, but at the end of the day, like, I don't know, there's even like people I know who, that selling their player, they were able to build something very cool in their life. And so, I don't fault them or anything like that. But it did make me curious, like, is there some way to think about the future beyond the initial iteration of the Masquerade, where should these change hands, is there a way for someone to come back in? And so even if this version of it, the 613 and the guest list is set here, if you are not part of that, I just recommend to keep an eye on the future, because we've accounted for that. And later this year, we have a rather beautiful thing that I'm very excited to share with people, but it's like a little bit too early and there's plenty of other things to talk about.
Yes.
Sounds like a spoiler there.
Well, this has been incredible, Sam. I know you are incredibly busy. I guess maybe just any final words you want to leave listeners, your collectors with ahead of the games about to begin.
Just that, like Rachel, my wife, and I are just like so insanely appreciative. Like it means an insane amount to us to have this kind of support. Like we're cognizant of how crazy it is out there. Like I have a number of friends that got hit very hard during like market downturn and everything, and so to like have people galvanize around this in some sense, and be ready to kind of like dip out of their own patterns and trading and whatever to try this. And like, even though it'll be like, you got a kid, you're building a little empire over there, you taking the time to like go through and read these observations and like wear that role within this, like it is an insane privilege that I do not take for granted, and it means quite a lot to me.
Well, love to hear that. And Ovi, how are you feeling? Ahead of deliberations.
Yeah, I'm excited. Unfortunately, I've missed, just be it my luck, I'm not really the luckiest person in the world, but I've missed the in-person council meetings that are famously held in New York, where various cult-like activities occur, which seems to involve killing Benny each time. So I've missed the previous ones. Hopefully, I'd love to make it out to one of the ones that coming up this year. But yeah, it's cool. Like, it's really cool. I bought my skull probably about a year and a half ago now. I think it was in 2023, I believe. But it's really cool. Like, I love being part of something like this, because it's just like, I get so engrossed in like, looking at charts, numbers, or all this stuff. And then suddenly it's like, Masquerade. I can just finally, like, it's like a release for my mind, where it's like, this is actually something fun that I can sit down and just think, like, use a different parts of my brain that I'm not using every single day to actually really just appreciate some good art, to be honest with you. Like, I think that's for me, that's what it always comes down and boils down to. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how this works. This is definitely each iteration of this story ends up being a larger scale than the previous one, and this is the Monument game was huge, but this is like another level. So I'm very curious to see how it all pans out, and excited to play a part in the deliberations for sure.
Yeah, and I agree. I'm a huge fan of your work. I think these last few one-on-ones, they keep getting better. I think they're some of the best digital art we've been blessed with in this space. I think you're on my Mount Rushmore of digital artists, Sam. So very impressive. I'm very excited to be following and participating in this game and reporting on it as well. So wish you the best of luck, and we'll be excited to let this play out.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, guys. Take care.
Cheers, Sam.
All right, folks. I think we went over, but it was well worth it getting to hear in detail from Sam everything the Masquerade. So I'm excited for this one. This is going to be a fun few weeks. It kicks off here. Yeah, really today. The drawing ends then the 21st. So tomorrow is when the party starts. So get ready to party. As for today, we are going to end today's show there. Want to thank our listeners. Want to thank our partners. Want to thank Sam, of course, for coming on, and Ovi for taking time out. This has been a fun show. We'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern to close out the week. Till then, go make it a great day. Goodbye.